Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and we are back with Migration. It's been pretty good to me, actually. Maybe not my best year ever, but certainly not my worst. Actually, with that global, the triple global I got in that either the last video or the one before it, it probably is my best year. A couple things I want to talk about today, but before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you'll get access to exclusive content, including Personal Finance for Gamers, The Modern Entropian, but more importantly, exclusive videos, of which the July one was Reading Miles in the Night. I am coming up with what's going to be the video for August. I'm hoping to get it up earlier rather than later, although the next 2 weekends are going to be exceptionally busy, to the point where I'm probably going to be doing my videos during the week as opposed to on the weekend. You know, sometimes real life takes precedence. COVID really kind of had 18 months of COVID made it so we had to truncate our summer into the last half of summer. So like next weekend, we've got a bunch of family coming up. The weekend after that, we've got a memorial to go to for someone who passed away last April, not from COVID, my grandmother. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to do my best to try to get it out earlier rather than later. I know I'm not always terrific at that. Entropia side, I did want to look at something. So currently I'm using the LB35, right? Which is a good weapon. It's got the amp on it, so it's got 66 points. Nice. It's 666. Really? There. So it does good damage, especially with the amp. Now let's close that and look at an unamped version. So we've got 45 to 90, 64.4% efficiency. And then I purchased my first 40, which I'm not really in the damage zone for, but I'm above the recommended level. So it's at that point where I need to start working on it, I think. Let's see what my level percentage is after this mob. I just want to check it out. Equip 49, so not terrific. I should probably stick to 35s for a little bit longer, but I thought it was worth checking out. And now I've got one, so when I'm there, I've at least got one to work with. So that's pretty much it for Entropia developments. I picked up my first, LB35. And as you can see, I did my daily this morning, so I've got some loot. Nothing enormous, though. So, yeah. We're moving along, finally starting to kind of grind through all the levels. Just a little bit closer to level 48 for hit, and I'd like to try to make level 50 sometime in the next year or two. Like, I've done a lot of really low-level hunting this year, which has not moved my level at all. Because, well, one, I was saving money, but also because I was testing efficiencies and seeing if loot percentages were higher. Things of that nature, which I think they were. Just because I was so over-level for skinning. But because you're fighting things that are such a low level, it's going to be monstrously inefficient. And I think that's what I ran into. At some point, I need to go back to Monria and work on seeing how time there goes, because I was doing really well when I was on Monria. But I haven't been there all year, which is unusual for me. That's the thing, is if you have to really make the trade-off, right? You have to choose between spending a lot of time on one planet or switching between planets relatively quickly and not doing what you want to do on that planet. And that's always the hard trade-off, figuring out which one you really want to do. For me right now, some planets make more sense than others. For instance, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to be on Next Island because the two groups of people that I can really see functioning well are those going to ancient Greece to do the Gorgon quest, which is above my level, and those that are there to do like hunting the monkeys, which is low level. So I don't see that as a good fit for me at the moment, although I do know the Next Island team is working really hard. Toulon is a good spot for a lot of low-level stuff. I didn't focus enough on the mid-level stuff. I think I could go back and do more of that. And Toulon's got really favorable loot tables. Monria is really good for that same category. The one downside to Monria, and it's not really a huge downside, it's just somewhat noticeable, is that there's only like 4 types of mobs. So you have to that's the only thing you really have to contend with there. But that, on the other hand, it does make it simple. You know what their damage tables are going to look like. And they are adding more and more. And I know that there's the new section of, I don't know if it's part of Monria. I understand it's like Toulon, I think. But it's DSAC and it's from, I don't know. I got to look it up and do the math on that one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more and doing more. And we visited Entropia for a while, and that was pretty good. Although I spent most of my time on Entropia exploring the oil fields and the keg field. Which is playing for free is a grind. You just have to accept it. But it wasn't a bad time. It wasn't a bad time at all. So yeah, that's all for Entropia. There's something else that I wanted to talk about, and this is one where I don't know if y'all run into this or not. And I would say, depending on where you're from, is probably going to make the difference. So, as is my idiom, my Saturday was rather busy. It's 18:30 on Saturday when I'm recording this, and I have just had a very full day of outdoor work. So, like, we did the lawn, I split wood, we had to take returnable cans down to the redemption center. I don't know if they do this in other countries, but in a lot of U.S. states, including mine, when you buy, like, pop or soda or beer or liquors, they put a deposit on the container that you're purchasing. So it'll be an extra 5, 10, or 15 cents, depending on what it is. And if you bring it to a redemption center with the empty containers back, the redemption centers are there to encourage recycling, then you get that deposit back. And so we had to bring those bottles and cans down, get those redeemed. My son gets that money, and he actually just bought Fallout New Vegas using that money. And as I was getting done, I was realizing it was already 5 o'clock, and part of me is like, geez, I'm crow. It's like my Saturday's gone. But then again, I was thinking about it, and it's like, if I didn't do all that stuff, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Does anyone else have that kind of an issue? Where it's like you have to have work to do? Maybe I'm just a workaholic. Maybe it's just me. But, like, when the only Saturdays where I am not just chugging, grinding for most of the day is when I'm at an event. And, you spend most of the event fighting. So it is work. It's just a different type of work. You're slinging steel instead of, throwing lumber. But I've had events that I've gone to where I went there to see someone get an award and there was no fighting going on. And I felt useless all day. I mostly wandered and I chatted with folks, and I did get a couple things accomplished, but it was like, give me something heavy to lift and move, And while I'm good in a kitchen, I'm not great in a kitchen that's being run to serve large quantities of people. Like, you put me in a kitchen, you tell me to make a meal for people, I can do it. But if it's a brigade style kitchen, this is why I never got into restauranting like my father and sister did. So like my father was a saucier, and then my sister is a pastry chef. And they do really well in big commercial kitchens with a lot of people and a lot of things going on. And my sister's run a bakery before, so she's had to like manage people. And they're good at it and they can do it and good for them, and I can't. So I have a hard time doing that sort of thing. But there were events that I've gone to where it's like, hey, you know, I see where people need help. It's like, hey, can I lift something? Can I carry it for you? Can, you know, it's a medieval recreation group, so it's like, I'll grab the thrones, or I'll grab the box that carries all the stuff in it and move it, and you know, just basic Mongo labor. And it doesn't need to be a huge amount of it for me to feel better about it. You know, 20 or 30 minutes of just regular physical labor. And maybe that's why I make midnight bacon when I'm camping, because it gives me that piece of work, that helping out, because I cook bacon and, you know, everyone can partake that is there. Which never happens at midnight. That's the tradition. My friend Cormac is the one who started it out west. And his record is something like 33 pounds of bacon in one night, which is just absurd. And it was gone by the end of the night. It was gone. But, I mean, he, like, brings a griddle. We're talking a full-ass size griddle that's 6 feet wide and, like, 2 or 3 feet deep, run on propane, and he fires that sucker up and just cooks bacon. You know, we're all drinking, he's cooking bacon, bacon's good for everyone, you know? Me, I have my little Coleman stove and my cast iron pan. I do 2 pounds, and it takes like an hour and a half, and I'm good. But it's enjoyable, and it's a little bit of work to do, and everyone chats, and everyone enjoys bacon, and it's a great conversation starter. If you ever want to make friends, okay, wait till like 9 o'clock at night when everyone's gotten 1 or 2 drinks in. Some people will be far more, but usually by 9, everyone who's an adult is 1 or 2 drinks in that drinks. And just start cooking bacon. And that's the easiest way to make friends. I swear to God. Like, I'm cooking bacon, and then people are walking by like, are you making bacon? It's like, yeah, you want some? Midnight bacon. It's been 2 years since I've made midnight bacon, but there is the last event that I went to that was camping is happening again this year, and I am looking forward to it. It'll be really nice to get back out there. And there's a traveling trophy that I actually won 2 years ago that I now need to bestow upon the next winner, and I'm one of the judges for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So what about you? How many of you experience that, like, need to do work? Like, you get antsy if you're just sitting around. And I'm not calling those who do, like, sit around and spend their weekends relaxing lazy. They're not. You know, a lot of people, they work hard all week long, and on the weekends, they just don't want to deal with shit. And you know what? There was a time in my life when I was like that, and that's fine. I have no disrespect for people who are like that. But ever since moving home, getting back out into the country, I've noticed, like, I feel less, I don't know, I feel more engaged if I'm actually, like, doing the work. You know, going out, I do the lawn. We start at like 10 o'clock. So we start a little bit later. We end a little bit earlier usually. You know, but it's not low-key work. It's, you get out there and you throw wood. And I was literally throwing, you know, they were logs, but they weren't like the big logs. They were probably 9 to 12 inch wide. blocks that we were cutting up for an elderly gentleman we help out. And so they were in an inconvenient spot. And the choices are you can move the lumber to the splitter or the splitter to the lumber. Now, when we cut the wood from my home, those are big chunks. And usually, I mean, I split blocks that are almost 2 feet wide. And they're 17 inches, so they're 17 inches long. And the diameter of the logs have been as much as probably 18 to 24 inches. I think the biggest ones were 20. I won't go as far as 24. I will go as far as 18. So they're not small. But for this gentleman they were smaller trees, so, you know, split them 2 or 3 times because he uses them for a wood cook stove, which I am very jealous about. I don't know why he decided that's the only cook stove he needs. But I would love to have a wood cook stove as a secondary stove. Y'all looking at me funny, I know it. And so I had all that to split, and that was a solid hour and a half of splitting. There was quite a bit there. And as much as I hate to admit it, splitting wood feels good. Like it does. You get into kind of a, not a fugue, but a rhythm. You get a rhythm going, and it's very, very repetitious. You place, you set the hydraulic, you place the log up against the blade. You make sure your hands are out of the way, but you have to hold the log in place. You hit the lever. The hydraulic pushes the log onto the axe head. It splits it. And then, depending on the strategy you're using for this particular split, because most of the time, you just keep splitting, and once there's not enough room, the splitter will actually push itself back by putting pressure against the wood you've already split with the log you are splitting. It'll just push the splitter back. In this case, though, because it was all really small, light stuff, and because of the way I had to utilize it, I would toss it into the pile. I mean, each chunk probably weighed like 1.5 pounds. They're not very heavy, big pieces. And so just split, toss. You're just kind of lost in your head thinking about things, or I'll listen to an audiobook while doing it. And then when you're done, you're done. And if you had told me when I was a teenager that I would enjoy splitting wood as an adult, I'd have said you're crazy. Like, seriously. That was not ever anything I would have seen as something I did not mind doing. And there are days I don't want to do it. Believe me, when it's 90 fucking degrees outside in the hot sun, that is not a fun job. Because you're out there in the beating sun. I have worn a shirt. It's better if you don't. And you're splitting under the hot sun. When it's that hot outside, I actually wait for the afternoon, often the late afternoon. Like, I am more willing to split on a hot day between like 4 and 7 p.m. than during the hours I normally work, because it's just too much. It's just too hot. Because splitting wood, your internal temperature will go up 10 to 15 degrees. It is warm work. I have split wood in 0-degree weather, and when it's that cold, you wear coveralls. And I've stripped the coveralls down to the waist, and I'll have just like a light sweatshirt, because that's how warm it is in 0-degree weather. Like, no shit, I have done this. That's how warm it is when you split wood. And when it's that cold and you're splitting wood, you need to eat a really hearty fucking breakfast, because if you don't, you won't be able to maintain your energy. Just being out in the cold is hard work, and then you add hard physical labor on top of it, and you'll burn through your energy like mad. So that day it was like, I think it was like eggs and sausage and frickin' stuff like that, and just calories. And I burned through every single one of them. High in fat, high in protein, and by lunchtime I was starving. Drop a comment if any of you have experiences like that where it's, you know, you feel odd if you are idle for too long. It could just be me. And I'm not talking like generalized boredom. You know, because that's one thing. You can defeat boredom with like games or books or browsing social media or stuff like that. I'm talking like, I don't know. It's a different feeling. I never thought I'd be the type of person to like enjoy doing work, like physical work. Especially since I work such an intellectual job. Like, I'm not a scientist or anything like that. I work in finance, but it's not hard labor. It's a lot of like contracts and interpretations, a lot of discussion, sales, stuff of that nature, explaining things, educating customers on what they're buying, you know, and, you know, if whether or not that particular it's insurance, so that particular insurance coverage is proper or right for them, because it's not always. But it's not physical. And as a kid, I was always like, yeah, I'd want to be the computer office person that just types behind their desk all day, and that's what I do. Basically, I'll spend more time on the phone than anything. But that's generally what I do. But on a Saturday, I get outside, and it's just good to get out there and move around and just throw heavy things. Maybe I'm just weird. But I honestly believe that that's a good thing. I do. I don't know why. But I feel better about myself. Like, there are Saturdays when it's like pouring. You can't go outside and work in the pouring rain for a lot of the stuff I do. It's bad for the machinery. Like, you don't split wood with a splitter in the rain. It rusts the engine. It just makes a mess. And of course, you can't do the lawn in the rain for obvious reasons. So on those days, it'll be gaming, rest, whatever. But I often feel a lot more listless on those days. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't know. You know, here's how bad it's getting for me. This is how country I have returned to. We're investigating getting chickens again, and that makes me happy. And there's going to be a lot of work that goes into building the coop, or reestablishing the coop, putting up the fencing, all of that stuff. If we actually go ahead and do it. I even looked into getting an emu. Like, no joke, I looked into getting an emu. And unfortunately, that's just a little too costly. That being said, they lay 1 pound eggs. I was like, buy the emu, get the couple clutches of eggs. And then emu meat is supposed to be really, really good. So that was on the table too. But after looking at all the requirements, the space they need, like they require 1,000 square feet per pair of birds. And you want to buy them in pair. You don't want to get them singly. And it's just like, that's a lot of space. Like, we've got it, but that's a lot of space. And then where we would have to put them is too close to the rifle range, so... I mean, it's not like they get hit, but it wouldn't be good for their ears. You know what I mean? And that's just not good. So I think that we'll forego the emu. Even though I really wanted an emu. I actually had a girlfriend back when I was in North Dakota. Her family had an emu. And she goes, it was hilarious because the emu liked to chase the cat. And the dog knew you weren't allowed to chase the cat. So when the emu would chase the cat, the dog would chase the emu for chasing the cat. Like, oh my god. Actually, when I lived on her family's farm for a year. I woke up one morning. I walked out the front door. I'm going to work. I worked at a bank. So I'm in my suit. And, living on a farm, I'm wearing a suit, big ass garden with all kinds of delicious fresh vegetables. Oh, that was such a harvest that year. And I step outside and I look up, and there's this black cow on the other side of the garden. And in North Dakota, they farm Angus cows, not milk cows. I was used to milk cows. Milk cows are fairly docile. You can walk up to them, you pet them, you lead them back to their pen. Angus cows, not so much. Angus cows tend to be moody. And so I'm like, okay. So I call out my girlfriend, and I'm like, so I'm used to dairy cattle, which are basically puppies. What do we do about this? And she goes, oh, no problem. She walks out, claps her hands twice, and goes, ha, go home. Big lumbering Angus cow just lumbers by, goes through the driveway, back into the pen. She shuts the gate. We don't even know how the gate got open. But it's like, nothing says country life like waking up and having someone else's cow in your freaking garden. Oh boy. Get me to a safe spot here. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next one.